Welcome back to Miss Eddie's Math Movies, where it's a cute to be a square. Today's lesson is 10.2, 45, 45, 90 triangles. By the end of the lesson, you'll be able to find the side lengths in 45, 45, 90 triangles. We've already talked a little bit about these triangles, and you have this one with you. This is what the 45, 45, 90 triangle looks like. And it's a triangle. It's a right triangle. It's where the 90 comes from. These are 45 degrees. The legs are 1, and the hypotenuse is square root 2. Now these are just all triangles that have these angles are going to have these ratios. And we're going to talk about how to find other triangles that are similar. So one way you can think about it, and we're going to talk about 3 different ways to think of this, is that the hypotenuse is the leg times root 2. All right, but there's another way. There's a couple other ways that I like better. So I want you to pull out your extra note sheet that looks like this. Solving for lengths, and make sure it's the 45, 45, 90 side. So one way that we just talked about is to memorize this. The legs are equal, and the hypotenuse is root 2 times the leg. All right, so if you look at this picture, well, we know the legs are equal. So this is a leg and this is a leg. So A equals 7. And then the hypotenuse is root 2 times the leg. So the hypotenuse is D, the leg is 7 times root 2. All right, so if you would memorize that, that's great. Some of you can see that pattern pretty easily. Right? When you look at this, you saw the pattern today during class. You know that these are the same, so you automatically think, well, right, x and x, these have to be the same, so 7 and 7. And then, well, this is, you take this, multiply by 2. So this is 7 root 2. So you're kind of thinking about what the x's are. Whatever's here is going to go here with the root 2. But another way that I want to focus on is writing a proportion, because sometimes the pattern isn't obvious. Now on this one, we already know the answer, but I want to show you how the proportion works. If I want to solve for A, I could do A is to 7 as 1 is to 1. Cross multiply, A equals 7. You're like, well, yeah, we already knew that. But I want you to practice this way because sometimes it's not easy to see this pattern. So then to find D, we could do D is to 7. D is to 7 as root 2 is to 1. We cross multiply, D equals 7 root 2. So these are the 3 methods, and you get to pick your favorite. The memorizing method always works, and the proportion method always works. The pattern method is the quickest, but it doesn't always work because the pattern isn't always obvious. And we're going to look at some examples like that. So here's example 1. Find the length of the hypotenuse. Well, we see it's a 45, 90. We know this has to be 45 because that's how many degrees. We need 180 in our triangle. And maybe you already know the answer. You already know what x is going to be. All right. If you don't know, though, take your 45, 45, 90 triangle and turn it so that it looks just like this. Now we can write a proportion. 3 is to x. 3 is to x as 1 is to root 2. Right, we cross multiply, x equals 3 root 2. Now maybe you already knew that. You know the pattern. You're like, oh, 3, 3, 3 root 2. And that's great. You can use the pattern if you know it. Right, now here, we're looking for the leg. Now maybe you already know what it is. And you can write that down. But if you don't know, turn your 45, 45, 90 triangle so it looks like this. We know these are similar, so let's write an equation or a proportion. X is to 7 root 2 as x is to 7 root 2 as 1 is to root 2. So we're going to cross multiply. 7 root 2 times 1 divided by root 2. So x equals 7 root 2 divided by root 2, right? Because we're going to cross multiply and then divide. Well, these root 2's are going to cancel. X equals 7. And maybe you already knew that because you knew the pattern. 7, 7, 7 root 2. So if you want to think about this as 1, the pattern is 1, 1, 1 root 2, that's fine. 7, 7, 7 root 2. All right, so I want you to do this checkpoint. Do this now. These are both like example 1. And keep your answer in square root form. Do not put it in your calculator. No calculator. Identify 45, 45, 90 triangles. Determine whether there was enough information to conclude the triangles a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Explain your reasoning. Well, we know there has to be 180 degrees in a triangle, so we need to figure out what x is going to be. Is it going to be 45 and 45? So all 3 of these added together have to make 180. X plus 90 is 180, right? So that's the equation that we're using. I'm going to do it over here. All 3 angles of the triangle have to equal 180. So this is 2x plus 90 equals 180. Subtract 90 from both sides. Divide both sides by 2. Yep, x is 45. So this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. The triangle is. So we got to make sure that it's a 45, 45, 90. Otherwise, we can't use our triangle. Example 3 shows that whenever the acute angles of a right triangle are congruent, then the triangle is a 45, 45, 90. So here, we need to find the legs. So let's look at this. This one's different. Turn your triangle so that it looks the same. We have a problem. If you've been using the pattern, this is supposed to be 5 root 2. Oh no, the pattern isn't working. This is supposed to be the 5 root 2. So when the pattern doesn't work, you have to write a proportion. So x is to 5 as x is to 5 as 1 is to root 2. Now how did I know to use this triangle? Well, I see that these are the same. Notice in this triangle these are the same. So that's why I knew this was the correct triangle. That's going to make it a 45, 45, 90. So now we can solve this proportion. 5 times 1 divided by root 2. X equals 5 divided by root 2. Now it's divided by. So if you want to leave your answer like this, that's fine. If you want to put it in your calculator, you can. But I think we should probably just leave it like that to practice. We can see what it is approximately. 5 divided by square root 2. So x is approximately 3.5. That makes sense. Imagine if you would have done 5 times root 2. That would be 7. It doesn't make sense for these to be 7. The hypotenuse has to be the biggest. So 7 doesn't make sense there. Checkpoint number 3. I want you to do this now. This is just like example 4. Write your proportion. Take your triangle, turn it, write the proportion. This is M Cubed, signing out.